Okay, we'll go ahead and get started. I hope everybody's having a wonderful day in Northeast and Northwest Ohio and other places. So we have new technology, so you're going to have to bear with us a little bit. So we might have a few hiccups here or there, but it's a great tool that we utilize. But as you all know, anytime you're using a new technology, there's always things that you have to work out. So bear with us on that. But with that said, good morning to all the attendees. My name is Alex Williams. I thank you all for participating on this webinar call today. We, Campbell, are excited to present Campbell's Education Series 2021. The title of our topic today is Demystifying Electric Bills. I'm excited about our guest speaker, Mike Spacek. Here's a quick bio on his background before we get started. Mike Spacek provides electrical design, engineering efficiency, and utility rate integration consulting. Some of his major customers include PCC Air Force, Sherman-Williams, Windsor Mold Group, Brecksville Broadview Schools, City of Huron, Surgeon Teed, Wilbert Plastic Services, and many other clients. Conceived, managed, and implemented projects in Windsor, Canada, Fort Erie, Canada. I'm probably going to tear this name up here, but I'm going to try it anyway. Querétaro, Mexico, and 20 other states in the US of A. Again, I will be your host, and we want to make sure this is an interactive as much as possible, along with any questions you may have. Please feel free to enter your questions in the chat box, and I will make sure I monitor that box to ensure that all questions are answered. One of the things I have noted on this the software that we have, I have to unmute you. It's kind of the way it works right now. Like I said, this is a trial pilot for us with this new software that we have. So with that said, if you can just put your name in the chat box or question there, I will unmute you so that way you can talk in real time as Mike interact or go through the presentation. And again, we want to try to make this as interactive as possible. At this time, please welcome Mike Spacek, our speaker for today. Okay, Mike, it's in your court.
Thanks, Alex. Welcome, everybody. One of the things that Alex didn't mention, which I probably didn't write down, is I spent 22 years at First Energy Company to get my background in utility rates and expertise, if you will. And then when I left First Energy for the last 20 some years, would be 20 years now, so I left in 2001, I've been bringing services to my customers that actually the utility company doesn't bring to their customers. So we offer those type of deals. So with that, like Alex said, we're going to talk about demystifying the electric bill. And if you look on that one slide, one thing I want to talk about is the president of our company says when he does these talks, even if he's going to talk about Abraham Lincoln, he's going to talk about efficient, effective, and alternative. That's just as important as what we're going to talk about today, just with your electric bill. You know, I can show anybody how to be the most efficient person in the world and still see your electric bill or gas bill go up. You must do things effectively. If you don't, you're rowing against the tide here. And then one of the main calls I get quite often is somebody wants to put alternative energy in. That's a noble concept, and that should be done. And I think we're going to talk a little bit about alternative energy in a separate session. But again, do efficiency and effectiveness. That is the biggest bang for your buck. Then alternative energy can pay back in spades handsomely again. If you do not do all three of those things, only one of them may not be good for you. Okay? And today's lesson is mostly going to be about the effectiveness. Knowing what you're buying is the effective portion of this. I'm not going to talk about what type of efficiency equipment to put in, how much it's going to save you, won't save you, and things like that. We want to talk about the electric bill. Is it right? Is it wrong? How do you know that? And then that would be very effective to pay for what you're getting. Okay? Alex, how do we page down to the next slide? I think I can do that right there. There we go. Another thing I always do is I always thought Albert Einstein was a fairly smart guy. He said insanity is doing the same thing over and over again and expecting different results. I run into that so much, and even in my own life. but mostly I deal with a lot of schools. And boy, to get those guys to do something different, it's a tough row to hoe because it's different. They could get in trouble, whatever. So they're always going to say, hey, call up an ESCO type of a company and do the same old thing and think they're going to get something different. Typically, if you have a question on your utility bill, you're going to call the utility company. I might show you how that's not probably the thing you ought to do, but that's what everybody thinks they do, and they keep doing it and think somewhere some utility guy is going to come in here and save them some money. I'm here to tell you that's not going to happen, and I'll show you how to get around that, okay? You know, normally when we buy things, you look at it and say, well, how many am I ordering? What color do I want? You might weigh it if that's what you're buying. You might have a unit pricing or a volume discount. Yeah, look at those things. There's so many ways to buy things. And the key is to know what you're buying and what it costs. I like when Alex says, I'll mute you or unmute you. I'm going to give you two. I always invoke my wife in these things. And she has my mute button and my unmute button, so I know when to talk. But in buying things, going to restaurants, that happens to me so often. Somebody else, when I was a lot younger, I used to go to Wendy's drive-thru and I'd get a bowl of chili and a salad. And one day the girl says, would you like cheese and onions on that? Yeah, that sounds good. Little did I know that cost another $1.50. I didn't know what I was buying. I said, oh yeah, that sounds good. Well, that cost me something. So I didn't know. And if you don't know what you don't know, and hopefully we can help you a little bit about especially the utility bill. And I'll call it the electric bill now because that's what we're going to talk about. Everything I talk about on the electric bill has many, many, many similarities to your gas bill. But we are going to focus on the electric bill at this point in time. You know, electricity, though, we do things a little differently. You can buy regulated services. We might know what that is. We can buy unregulated. That's known as your generation services, where you go get power from whatever it's going to be, Constellation or any of the suppliers on the market. But remember, all parameters built by the utility, the meter is owned by the utility. The meter is read by the utility. So everything is owned, operated, whatever, under the arm of the utility company. You know, in your factory or wherever you're at, and if you're buying, I don't care what you're buying stones, you weigh them. That scale is yours, and you check it out. So there, what do we have? We have the meter and billing, and the whole operation is done by your utility company. Well, did they read it right? Is the meter right? Do they have the right thing? If you have scales and things in your office, shop, or whatever, you get it calibrated. Electricians calibrate their meters once a year, different things like that. Did they read it right? I used to joke about when the Cleveland Browns were 0-16 all the time. Fortunately, we're seeing a little better results from them. But if you went back in history, you'd find most Monday reads and bills were probably incorrect because it's all done by the utility. And in Cleveland, Ohio, they weren't very happy on Monday morning. So the read could be wrong. They can enter the wrong rate code. What are the rates? Do you have the right rate? Do you know what rates you can use? Did you get the voltage? Did you get what you paid for? Normally you talk about kilowatt hours and you have a price per kilowatt hour. Well, one thing you'll see briefly today is there's no such thing as a kilowatt hour price, but that's what you go on to. And then finally, if you had a question, who do you call? You know, that's a great question there. And normally when I say, oh boy, if you call the utility company to check on your utility bill, I don't think many farmers that raise chickens call the fox to ask where he should stack the hens. You know, you've got to be very careful with that. I don't want to be too critical of my former mates at the utility company, but they deserve any criticism I give them. Their mission is not to save you money. Their mission is to increase their revenue in all means possible. Okay? A chilling statement is next, as far as I'm concerned. I've been doing this since 1980, 40 plus years. The error rate in billing is 100%. You will have an incorrect bill. You may have already had an incorrect bill. Did you know it? Do you know how to catch it? And then do you know how to fix it? In my life, as a First Energy person and in my energy business today, every one of my customers has an incorrect bill at some time. It could be an ongoing billing error also. We'll talk about one in the future. One of my customers had an ongoing billing error. And after we dug into it, they got over $1 million refund. I don't even want to call it a refund. They got their money back, and going forward, the error is corrected. So they're saving money with that too. So you will have an incorrect bill. I did this lecture with my friends at Sherwin-Williams a couple of years ago. We have an electronic communication similar to this. With all the plant managers, I was up in the corporate office. They were appalled to think that. And the rest is history, and Sherwin-Williams is one of my best customers today. And we do find many, many errors at the Sherwin-Williams company. So can you catch it? Can you prove it? And who are you going to call? That $1 million error we saw? CEI, Cleveland Electric Aluminum Company, stood as tall as they could, as long as they could, saying nothing's wrong. And there was something wrong, and the client got $1 million check for nothing being wrong. So your first call should not be to the utility company, and if you do have to call them, their first answer is not necessarily the correct answer. Challenge them at all times. Okay? So back in the day, since about 01, a little bit before that, 1999 is really when deregulation started happening. But before that, back in the good old days, there was one company, whether it was CEI, Ohio Edison, Toledo Edison, Columbus Southern, Dayton Power and Light. There was one company, a vertically integrated utility. They owned their generation. They had their transmission lines, and they distributed it to your home. Those were like the good old days that, the lights were on, bills right, and all was well. We used to call that, in that day, these were gentlemen. The gentleman utility company has now become basically an alligator-infested swamp. And now the way it is today is it's unbundled. The transmission generation is actually, when you buy your generation services, those two things are together. And that's the so-called competitive industry, if you will. And I'll tell you what, there are a lot of suppliers, and those guys will tell you anything. Now, the distribution companies, CEI, Ohio Edison, Toledo Edison, and all the other ones that are there, they feel that transmission and generation was them, and it's been taken from them. And they need to make money, because now they can't put transmission into revenues into CEI and generation back into the companies. The only way your local utility distribution company makes money is in distribution charges. Hence, that's why they want to charge you every time you have to, whatever it's going to be, call them up, get them your service cut off so you can change a meter. There's charges everywhere. That's the only way they can make money now, and they take that seriously. And one thing, internal to your utility company, gas company, electric company, phone company, all of them, they have one flag on a bill, and that's if it's a low bill. If it's not about what it used to be, that flagged, and they'll come out and check on you. If it's high, they don't care. That's good for them, but they don't have a flag to say there could be something wrong here. So that's why I caution you, if you want to know something about how you're being billed and is your bill right, find someone that knows something about bills, because utility company first glance is, oh, everything's okay. Unless it's too low, and then they'll show you how to charge you. They'll charge you some more, okay? We all get bills. This is a typical bill with CEI, Ohio Edison, or whatever, and there's a lot of information on that bill. One of the key points that you should look at your bill every time you get it, and see right that little arrow that says estimated? Don't ever, ever, ever accept an estimated bill. An estimated bill means they looked at your meter, and kilowatt hours aren't a problem. It's just demand thing down here, kW/kVA. They estimated that at 975, all right? And you pay a unit cost for that. And this type of a bill, you pay approximately $8 per unit. Well, that estimated bill is actually wrong because the demand was only 700 kW. Well, 275 times, let's round it up to $10, is $2,750. They took essentially $2,700 that wasn't theirs. And you have no, if you're not paying attention, well, it's too bad for you. And then next month they'll come out and do an actual read and you'll get the real bill, but this one is water over the dam and an actual read could be 800 kW, but you just paid 975 for 975 units. One of the biggest errors we see, this morning, I just got a bill and I get many, many bills from my duplicate bills. And that demand was registering 2,800. It's a school campus. Never been over 1,500. And they said it was an actual read. See what I mean about mistakes? Even though they actually read it, they read it wrong. And they had to pay, the bill was for over 1,000 of those units. That's great. And the next thing that happens with that is there's another hidden charge that there's a look back that you're billed that number or the greater of 60% of the previous 11 months. And some of them there's not a demand ratchet of 60%, it's 100% of that. So going forward, when they read 2,800, if we didn't correct that, every month is 2,800, even if you use 1,000. Very, very critical to know what they're doing, how you're getting billed, and what you're paying for. If you don't know that, you will get a bad bill and you will pay too much money. Hands down, no doubt. Okay? Now, you have these things called rates. This customer here says North Union Schools, Ohio Edison GP. That's general primary. And that means that DO means distribution. They're buying their generation services from, I believe it's Direct Energy down there. So they show that. So those are two separate things. Top is the regulated utility, Ohio Edison. The middle portion is that transmission and generation from a supplier. Some people get a bill that looks like this. It's called a summary bill format. If you have more than a couple accounts, you can get one bill instead of having a bill for each one of those addresses. And bills are a combination of demand, which I just talked about, energy, and other fixed charges like a meter charge. There's a smart meter charge. There's a lot of individual charges that you might know or you might not know about. And that bill is calculated from rates and riders. I showed you general primary. Actually very complex. And you never see any of the things in there. Take a look over there at on the summary bill. It says customer number, generation related component. We saw that, but you see a customer charge. Okay, that's wonderful. Distribution related component. What the heck is that? You'll see that that's never listed anywhere. Cost recovery charges. Geez. What are all these things? School distribution credit. Let's take a quick look at that. Here's two standard services. This is from the Cleveland Electric Aluminum Company, Toledo Edison bill, and the Ohio Edison rate tariffs look similar. AEPs are not, they all read a little differently, but they're all the same thing. You see some distribution charges there. On the left-hand side, GS, you pay $7 for the meter, basically for the right to have the meter on the wall. On the left-hand side, there's a distribution charge, $150. Remember, we saw that distribution was in the thousands of dollars. Well, here come capacity charges are next. And at CEI, they're about $7.47, plus these riders we haven't even seen yet. And on the primary side, as you see, it's $2.40. Well, I'd rather buy things at $2.40 than at $7.40, and you can do that. But the key here is, what are you buying? You're buying energy, but you're buying different blocks. You're buying capacity charge energy, and you're buying energy charge energy. So let's go from there to riders. I mentioned that years ago. This is what the rider charges look like. This is how many riders there were. Not very many. They got the different things you call them. That's business distribution, universal service, energy efficiency. That was a demand side management program. You do pay taxes. There's a kilowatt hour tax on your bill. Very few people are exempt, but some are. There's some of these riders you're exempt from. If you don't know you're exempt, you're going to pay until you tell them, I want to be exempt. So know your bill. And the riders comprise approximately 30% of your electric bill. And it's something you hardly ever see, know, or recognize. Now, look at that. They take 2 pages. That's how bills finally get rendered. Quite often, I'll say when I was a utility rep, and I was I was a national account executive. I had customers like Lear Corporation, Ford Motor Company was one of my customers. I dealt with some big outfits. And back in the day, we'd always say, we haven't had a rate increase since 1992. Well, look at your 1992 bill. It might have been 6 cents a kilowatt hour. Look at your 2021 bill. It's probably 12 cents a kilowatt hour, 8 or 9, whatever it's going to be, but it's substantially higher. But Mike, you just told me I haven't had a rate increase in 25 years. Very, very true. They put it on the riders. Again, these riders are comprised of kilowatt hour charges and demand charges. And again, if you don't know what they are you exempt from them? Did they misapply the riders? There are reasons and rules and regulations how that's done. That's that $1 million check I talked about earlier. It was based on one of these riders called a business distribution credit rider. And real quick, what happened there is they were a summary billed account, and CEI made a master account number change. The customer didn't do anything. CEI did it. And then, so they said, oh, there was an account change. So they quit billing the distribution rider. It falls off in their book. So the customer didn't get the credit. And I walked in and said, hey, well, they wanted me to do something. I said, I need to see bills. I need to know what demand is because we're doing some electrical work. And a few bills they gave me, I said, boy, this just doesn't pass the smell test. And I looked at it, I said, can you get me a couple more? And you got me a couple more. It smelled a little bit more, but I still didn't know the problem. And so we went all the way back and I found the problem. But now they said, well, we can't really hire you to do this type of work. We have a national energy consultant that does this for us. Oh, okay. Well, can you tell me the problem? I said, I could, but I'm not going to. You can find it yourself. So about a month later, the company calls me back up and said, well, listen, our energy people said there's no problem. Would you do this under contingency? Because we still can't hire you because we already have a consulting firm here. Well, sure, I'll do that. But what did that national accounting or energy firm do? They called CEI and said, hey, we think there could be a problem. Any problem with our bills? CEI said, oh, no, everything perfect, wonderful. Well, as I said earlier, 9 times out of 10, their first answer is wrong. And 3 months later, we got the $1 million check and the business distribution rider put back on. Yeah, they stopped billing it because CEI made an account, a maintenance change, and the business distribution fell off, and it should not have fallen off. Very, very common occurrence. I think they do that on purpose. They look for reasons to do that. Can't prove anything like that, but they are always looking for revenue, always. And giving you money back does not make revenue for them. But again, this might be the most unknown thing out there, the riders on your bills and how they're applied and any discounts associated with it. There are discounts in there. This is kind of taxes. You probably wouldn't go talk to the IRS without a good tax attorney and accountant. Why does anybody go talk to a utility company without somebody that knows at least as much, if not more, than they do? Because the IRS ain't going to help you. And believe you me, CEI is not going to help you. Maybe it's those 3-letter entities that don't help you. Okay. So some of the examples of, I'll say, billing errors that we've corrected over the years, and this, I need dozens more pages for this. This is just things that have happened. eHope Career Center, just a school. And That was a meter problem and a rate problem. They were reading the meter was damaged and it wouldn't reset. So all they could do is get a higher demand charge every month because it wouldn't reset to zero. So it was either what it was before or higher, and they weren't being billed the right rate. I kept asking Ohio Edison, so, hey, when are you going to read the meter? Of course, they give me we don't know, it could rain, it could do this, and the moon might rise in the west, who knows? I call one of the things you'll get from your utility company is I call it the 3 Ds. It's always defer, deflect, and delay. It's tough to get an answer. Some of you might be saying, yeah, I see that. Is that what that is? But whatever it is, and I waited for the meter reader, and he came out, read the meter. I take a picture immediately. The meter did not reset. It was actually a mechanical problem with the meter. And for a small schools campus, that turned out to be like $40,000 over the last couple of years. But you have to catch it, and then you have to make them do the refund because they'll always say you got nothing coming and there's no problem. Turtle Plastics, a very small outfit, but they were small with a big bill. And we were going to do an alternative energy project. And I looked at their meter and I went, holy moly, this meter was reading like 90 kW. And I said to the owner, I go, what do you got, a heater in here or something? Because I couldn't find 25 kW of load in that plant. And I just couldn't do it. You sure there's nothing that you don't run something, for an hour a month or something? No. And I said, come on, what's behind this door? I looked everywhere. The meter was wrong. It was 90 kW. I mean, it was just charging them like $6,000 a month. I thought that was their electric bill. And their electric bill is really about $900 a month. So we fixed that for them. And they took the credit. They didn't have to pay an electric bill going forward for 5 years because the credit was greater than the bills coming in. But who would have known that? Even the Ohio Edison guys, how'd you know that meter was bad? I said, well, Helen Keller could have seen it was bad, but obviously you guys couldn't. But we had to go through that and get it. PCC Airfoils is the one I talked about. Had the wrong business distribution credit. Windsor Mold, another one of my customers. I can't say that town in Mexico either, Alex. It's like Platero or something. It's just north of Mexico City. But in their Bellevue, Ohio facility, they got a note from Ohio Edison a couple of years ago. It said, well, we see that your load is increasing out there, and because of that, we can't have you on our distribution system, and you must build a substation. And the general manager sent that over to me, and I said, well, Bill, you don't have to build a substation. He said, what the hell? What do you mean I have to build a substation? They're telling me in this letter I have to build a substation. I build substations. Nothing I've ever did than build a nice $1 million substation for somebody. I said, well, when I was at First Energy, I did your contract. Your contract is 2.5 MVA, and you're only at 2.2 MVA. So, no, you don't have to do that. Really? I said, really? So I wrote him a note to send back to Ohio Edison, and basically it said, go jump in the lake. We don't need to do this. Our contract says that, and voila. Well, in all these instances, I call it my NFL policy. We always get, once they say no and we challenge them, they go, well, upon further review, we will allow this time. So that's how they will allow it, allow us anything. This is like a union contract. There's rules, regulations, policies, and procedures. You must follow them, and you have a contract. So that's how we did the Windsor Mold. They wanted them to build a substation. Basically, build a substation for First Energy, so they don't have to do any work on their lines and serve their customers. Swagelok. Most of us have heard of Swagelok over there in Cleveland. Very similar to the PCC airfoils problem. It was a different rate or error code that was ongoing, and we stopped that, got the money back, and going forward, they are getting the proper discount associated to their account. These happen all the time. Mayfield schools, my goodness, we're still uncovering problems out there. The rates were wrong, coding errors, estimates were wrong. You name it. This is a minefield of disaster in CEI billing and monitoring, just terrible. But we're working through it. We're getting our meters consolidated and getting the utility rep, put them in a headlock, give them a little Dutch rub, and make them do what has to be done. These errors are going back to 8 or 9 years. For example, the school expanded, and we probably always know the utilities will rent you parking lot lights and things like that. Well, that's nice, but behind an existing meter in the school, they have a meter. Somebody tapped off the service that they're already paying for behind the meter and tap it to another meter. So not only are they getting billed on one meter, the same energy is being billed through another meter. And I had to go out there at least 3 times and prove to their meter people, their billing people, their engineering people that they're like kids. I think about when the Europeans came to New York and bought it for what, $20 in beads. These guys were like incredible that I would turn the breaker off and that meter would go off. They said, how can that be? I said, I don't know how that can be, but you're double billing this meter. It took 8 months to get them guys to step to the plate on that. But again, it would have gone on forever had we not caught it. Sheffield Lake Schools. That was rates were wrong. Again, the rates and riders are just a historical problem. Estimations are a historical problem. But here, they gave me their bills. I said, they're getting billed for like 45 of those private outdoor parking lot lights. I go, man, you guys don't have that many lights. I go, well, we don't think so. Well, we went to the facilities and they had like 13 lights. I'm getting billed for all these years. And Ohio can only say, well, our records show, well, we don't really care what your records show. We don't have those lights. And one of the reasons it happened is if you're a customer of the distribution utility and buying their lighting service, which I advise you don't do, but you'll just get a lighting bill. And that seems really convenient and nice to do. You should make sure your private outdoor light charges go underneath your master bill. And the reason for that is Sheffield Lake closed 2 schools. And so those bills went away, but the lighting charges were under a separate bill. And so they said, well, you didn't ask us to remove those. No, we asked you to remove the services. And isn't that a lighting service? We made it right, but again, because the average person doesn't know that. And I was happy billing for lights that are sitting on the parking lot in a closed building that not even in the school's name. I mean, incredible. So that person bought the building thought he was getting a good deal for a while, but you shouldn't be paying for other people's things such as that. So again, we have the situation of, do you know how to read your bill? We have to learn that. What's in that bill? And did they read your meter right? Did they bill you correctly? And how are you going to know these things? There's several ways to do that. You can have your own sub-metering. That's probably the most effective way to do that. And I'll give you another tip here. Many folks want to have an internal metering or monitoring system of their electric or natural gas consumption. Well, they buy what they call the pulse from the utility company. You're just reading the same thing they are. So how do you know if it's right or wrong? You could be that again. The multipliers on the meter could be wrong, so you're getting the same error they are. You didn't get a sanity check for that. Very, very careful on what you're doing with utilities. I'll give you a quick natural gas one. I know we're trying to demystify the electric bill, but the old Ford Motor Company plants, and the gas company was billing the customer, and actually the customer was semi-right, and actually the utility was semi-right, and they were both semi-wrong. But in gas metering, you have to account for what's called temperature and pressure compensation. And it might mean something to you, it might not. But if you don't do that, depending on the pressure, in this plant, they were off by a factor of 2.7. And so here we got a property maintenance manager that thinks, he's wondering, why am I getting a bill from the gas company for $5,000 and I'm only reading $2,500 from my customers? It's because he did not do the compensation factors correctly. Gas company was happy. They're making money. What do they care? But, this guy called it a bleed. We found that, and it turned out to be a 2.73 pressure compensation factor problem. Happens in electric because there are multipliers on the meter. There's codes, there's rates, there's discounts, there's not discounts, there's unit charges, there's estimated bills, not estimated bills. Don't mean to scare you, but again, remember I mentioned the alligator infested swamp? That's right where you are today. As the generation of suppliers, they want to make money. We just said the distribution companies now, the only place they can make money is taking money from you. They're not protected by a vertically integrated commission any longer. The commission sometimes now takes a harder look at the utilities than they did in the past. They don't have as big a free pass. They still have a good free pass with the commission, but not as well as they did. So anytime the utility can pull a little wool over your eyes, they're ready, willing, and able to do that. Okay? So now that I've said all these horrible things, and what are you going to do? I mean, what do we do? Typically, you have expenditures over $150,000 a year, gas. You can find these things. Not to poo-poo a Dairy Queen or anything like that. If they're only paying $8,000 a year and you catch 10% error, $800 is still $800. You set it on the table over there and says go pick it up. I'll run pretty fast for it. But again, how do you know? Well, you could call Alex and he'll set you up with a bill audit structure. But I'm recommend don't call your utility company first. This fox in the henhouse thing is to me is a great analogy. They are not there to help you. We just had a situation down in AEP. AEP is billing a school wrong, but right now it's in the school's favor. Well, do you want to talk about that any further? You want to be like a teacher and a student says this problem's wrong. They will regrade the whole paper. So be careful with what you're doing. You could cause yourself some different issues. Know what you're doing with those guys. Well, again, I know Alex is a real nice guy, and I try to be almost as nice as him, but we need to make money one time or another. That's what we're here for. But, so does that cost you anything to get there? Well, sure, it should. I mean, I do it. Swagelok did a consulting fee just to tell you what happened over there. They didn't want to do that. PCC did it on a contingency basis. If you're working with somebody that has good people in there that knows what they're doing in the billing world, that could be right incorporated into an energy project. I do that often. I said, well, now that I'm working for you on these things, I monitor your bills and things like that and find things for you. But if it was just to be a bill audit, it might just be typically it's around 33% of captured refund, so that was a nice payday at the PCC place, right? $1 million, 30%. Okay. I'd like to do a lot more of those, but those come around once in a while. But again, on the contingency side of it, you go through all the bills and there's nothing there, well, you don't have to pay anything. But Swagelok is like a lot of folks I've run into. Well, wait a minute. If I went in a 30% contingency with you and you found $500,000, that means I have to pay you $150,000. They would rather allow the utility company to keep their $500,000 and more than think that you got too much money. So it's weird stuff, but you see that everywhere. And I guess I'd pull up my Einstein sign at that. So keep doing what you're doing, then the result's not going to change for you. You have to do something. And what is that going to be? You can study the rates if you want to, but I bet you guys have a lot more things to do. The other thing I see with when you get a bill, what's the real sanity check on your bill? Well, it's about what last month's was. It was about what September last year was. It must be okay. So yeah, that's right. But let me tell you, if you're going home this evening and you got to stop at Burger King or McDonald's, one of them, and you got to get a couple Happy Meals and you got to buy your your value meal or whatever you're going to get, before you pull away from that drive-through with that $25 order, did I get the number of fries I ordered? Did I get the right size? Did I get my drinks, right size drinks? And if you didn't, that poor minimum wage person behind that window is going to get your venom. But you get this $40,000, $50,000 electric bill or natural gas bill. Yeah, about what last year's was. Okay, I'll send the check. That is incredible to me. That when I was a utility rep, I can say I was awed. It was an awesome responsibility that I had on my customers to see their faith, and that faith has been misplaced greatly by the utilities of today. because I used to send all my customers, I'd look at their bills and I'd send them a note if I saw something going on or whatever. Um, when's the last time you had a personal note from your utility rep in regard to your electric or natural gas bill? Not the place to look at. They're always looking for money, and they're getting it every day because somewhere along the line you will have a billing error not in your favor. And the whole key here is, will you catch it? And then can you go get it back? With that, I really don't have much more to say than good luck on electric bills, and any questions, happy to do that. And Alex, I'm going to put it back in your court.
Okay, thanks a lot, Mike. Excellent presentation. At this time, we want to open it up for anyone that either want to put their question in the chat box, or I can unmute you. That way you can actually talk with any questions you have. Or if we want to take a deeper dive and schedule a meeting, one-on-one meeting to discuss your actual needs, because everybody needs are different, we can do that as well. And due to respect to my colleagues that are in other territories, this work is well for you and your clients in regards to our partnership with Mike's Basic. So that's something we can discuss with your potential clients as well, what we're doing here today. Is there any questions at this time? I give it about 30 seconds. If not, what'll happen is we will send you out a survey just so we can kind of gauge, for future webinars. There's a future webinar that's going to take place on October the 27th. And the title of this is called Transforming the Grid to 100% Renewable Grid. Again, this will take place on October the 27th. And guess what? We have Mike's Basic coming back to speak with us again in regards to that. And as you can see, he has a wealth of knowledge. For the clients that are on the call, I would advise you to take advantage of us consulting with you in this partnership that we have with him to help you in your organization. At this time, if there's no questions, I guess we'll go ahead and let you get your day back. Thanks a lot, everyone, for attending, and I appreciate it.
Take care, all.
Take care, everyone.